Welcome into another episode of MAIS Legends and Leaders. I am Ross Hailey. I'm joined by MAIS Executive Director, Mr. Barrett Donahoe. Coach Donahoe, thanks for joining us.
Good morning, Ross. How are you?
I am fantastic. We are excited to have Coach Bill Hurst as our guest for this episode. We look forward to some fantastic stories about football across our association from 1975 all the way up till this past year when Coach Hurst decided to retire with a state championship trophy under his arm. Coach Hurst, thanks so much for joining us here.
Thank y'all for asking me to come speak.
Hey, we're
I
excited about
appreciate
it.
it.
And I misspoke a second ago. Coach Hurst isn't actually retiring. He's just going to become a defensive coordinator so he can have a little bit of time to spend with his grandchildren.
That's correct.
He's not actually retiring. Don't worry, those folks that are in South Mississippi wanting to watch some Bill Hurst football, he'll still have it. He'll still have a version of it out there for them.
And Coach, I believe if you did retire, you'd probably decide to come back at some point.
I most probably would. Most probably, without a doubt, I would.
We're very appreciative of you taking time to come visit with us today. It's really an honor to have you here.
Well, I really appreciate y'all asking me, and it's an honor for me to be here. And first thing, I want to just thank God for giving me the opportunity to work with those kids that I've had the pleasure to work with. And I've told them in many assembly that He's the most important thing to me, and then my family. But I have to say, I put the school ahead of my family most of the time. But my kids have done well with it, and I love the school, love the kids. I can't see how people can mistreat kids like they do.
Yes, sir.
Well, Coach Bill Hurst has a 446 versus 157 career record. He's got a 74% winning percentage. And with those 446 wins, Coach Hurst, you're the winningest. You've been the winningest active coach. You've been the winningest coach, period, in the state of Mississippi, public school or private school. So, congratulations to that. I read a little article last night. The next active winningest coach is now going to have 316 wins. So you are 130 wins ahead of the next active coach in the state of Mississippi. So that's just that speaks to a phenomenal career that you've had.
As I say, I've been blessed from the Lord.
Well,
But somebody will break it. It's set to break. You know,
all records are set to be broken, aren't they?
absolutely.
Let's talk a little bit about the beginnings of the career at Centerville Academy. You grew up in Louisiana, right across the state line. You went to LSU, Lafayette. You graduated from Southeastern Louisiana, I think, and you ended up getting into coaching a few years after you graduated college, I believe. Tell us a little bit about how you ended up at Centerville Academy.
Well, the reason I ended up there is because I had a teammate that played high school football with. He and I had played, and he wanted to. He knew there was an opening at Centerville, and he said he wanted me to come and apply. He didn't care if I applied for the head coaching job or he either one. I told him he was more experienced. He'd done it a year or two already, and I was just fixing to start. So I told him to get it. We would go into a quick meeting. I don't want to talk too long, but anyway, and I had two board members in there with Mr. Hilary Horn. He was a headmaster at that time, and Mr. Joe Bryan and Mr. Bill Trask. Mr. Bill Trask knew my daddy, and they had roped cows together and worked together and hunted some together. And he made a statement that he knew anything about either one of us, but he knew my daddy. If I was anything like my daddy, they wanted to hire me. So he got the job, and that's kind of how it went on, you know. So I started out as assistant coach for 2 years.
That is that's a good, those are good memories, huh?
Yes, sir.
So-
Great memory. My best memories are actually from other than this football team this past year, or from my early years when kids were tough, parents were tough, and they wasn't soft and made out of candy. This day and age, they get real soft.
Well, let's talk about a lady that must have been pretty tough. Your wife, Pat. Y'all have been married 53 years.
Yes, sir.
She never missed a game that you coached.
No, sir, she hadn't. And she is a doll. She's really stuck with me because I've been hard to deal with. I'd come in from practicing 13 kids practicing, and she'd be telling me about one of the children, and I'd get aggravated because she hadn't already taken care of it, and she just wouldn't. But anyway, she's a great lady.
So 3 children for y'all and 5 grandchildren. All 3 of your children and all 5 of your grandchildren are have been students at Centerville Academy and will continue to be students at Centerville Academy.
Yes, sir. Very, very blessed.
Absolutely. Well, let's talk about some of your memories from Centerville Academy football. We got to visit a little bit before we came on the air. I played at Canton. Well, I was at Canton Academy. I didn't play football until my senior year. I didn't really care for football very much. I was one of those kids that wasn't tough enough. But everybody, you can grow out of things, I guess, eventually. Talk a little bit about those times in the 80s and 90s. Those are the times that Barrett and I are going to remember the most. Talk a little bit about some of those teams in the late 80s and early 90s when I was at Canton Academy. I told you a story about how y'all didn't treat your visitors very well. You had them up in the gym for the locker room, and you had to walk about a quarter of a mile down the hill to the football field. But I guess that was just part of making it tough on the opponents coming in, huh?
Yes, sir. But we all had to walk that same walk. We didn't have a field house at that time, so it was a long walk. Coach Bradshaw done some grumbling about it when he came down there to play. But we at that time, you were probably both of y'all. We had some of the better teams we had in the late 80s and early 90s. The end of the 90s were probably better than the beginning, but we managed to win a couple of state championships right in the end. It was a lot of fun. I had a kid on that 89 team that won the Bobby Dodd Award, and that's our most outstanding football player in the state of Mississippi. And he went to the University of Alabama, ran a 4.5, 5.40. He was 6'3" and 270. Coach Stallings told me that he was the fastest lineman that he had ever coached before. But he was a great player. He got in a tragic accident and didn't ever get to play. But but we've had a lot of good teams through the years. I know I hate to start naming names on kids, but Coach Donahoe, he played against some of the better teams that we had in the late 90s there. But
I wouldn't call what we did at Kapaa play, and I would say that y'all did most of the playing, and we just kind of took it a little bit.
Well, it happens that way sometimes, but we had put a lot of work in. My kids in the 70s and 80s, when the fourth quarter come up, people was cramping. They were just stretching. They were just getting loosened up to play. You run 50 sprints a day, and we did it at that time until Coach Bradshaw broke me from it. Told me don't. We played him in '76, and he just told me, he said I was overdoing it with my kids. They'd have a hour on that sled, 7-man sled. They wasn't just looking at it; they was getting it. And but we worked on that in 45 minutes skills, agility drills, and then we had 50 sprints to end. But I used to run 50 hundreds. But we broke them up in 2 sets, run 26 one set and 24 the last set. We ran relays and stuff. But those kids were just seasoned. They was tough, and their parents were tough, and they were still tough through the 90s. But things in the last 10 years, I'd say, it really, really softened up, and kids just not very tough, and their parents are not very tough.
Let me ask you this, Coach. So you're coming off of another state championship, so congratulations.
Thank you, sir.
For the state championship win in 2025. That was a phenomenal game, and to watch as a spectator, and y'all did a tremendous job of coaching that team to a state championship when you were down 14-0 at halftime. But you have a unique ability. We talk about how the athletes have changed over time. Your program hasn't changed. The what you saw at Centerville Academy in the 80s and 90s, and what you're still doing and what you've been doing today hasn't changed. How are you able to connect with those student athletes to get them to play the kind of football that you expected at Centerville 40 years ago, and you still expect today to still compete and win championships the way that you do?
Well, this group of kids here in particular, though, they have they were all. I had a bunch of kids that were real sharp. They made straight A's. 6 of them did all the way through high school, but I did them a little bit different than I did in the 70s. We ran 50 sprints still, and they had to prove to me after in the first ball game if they didn't cramp, nobody didn't cramp, that I'd cut the sprints back, and we got down to about 30 sprints, and ran 30 sprints, and didn't push the sled for an hour neither. We'd work on the sled for probably 15 minutes, 3 days, 2 days a week. I didn't even do it on Wednesday, but Coach Joe Bradshaw had told me that I was overworking them, their legs was tired, and I told him they wasn't tired, but evidently they were tired. But anyway, that's how I've kept them in. But you got to push them. You got to get a lot out of them. They got to do some sweating, and if they don't sweat, they're not going to make it through the game. They'll burn out. That first game is hot, and you playing the same kids both ways. It's very trying, but that group of kids they would just suck it up, and they pulled each other through at practice and everything else. But there's so much stuff to get into this day and age.
All right, Coach Hurst, let's talk a little bit about the community. I know Centerville is a town, but Centerville Academy draw kids from all around different parts of Southwest Mississippi and the area of Louisiana right there around Centerville. Talk about what Centerville Academy has meant to that community of Southwest Mississippi.
Well, I think it means the world to that community without a doubt, because there's nothing left in Centerville now but a Vines meat market, and got a nice hospital that they've just built in the last 6-7 years. They built that hospital, and they've got a car dealership. Well, we don't even have a grocery store at this time. They're getting ready to open a grocery store up. Got a new one that's being built, but I'm gonna call somebody named Dr. Dick Fields. He's passed away now, but he was an outstanding man, and he was a big symbol in the community, and he did a lot for my family. I call him any time of the night, take one of my kids to his house or whatever, and he would help me with them. I had to operate on my son when he was about 4 years old. He had a hernia, and Dr. Dick said he wouldn't live the next morning if we hadn't got him in there and did surgery on him. And the next day he was running around fine. But anyway, he took me in a long room. It from here to that corner over yonder, long, and a table just that long. And when I was the assistant coach, and he took me there and talked to me. And when Dr. Dick spoke, you listen, and he talked to me and asked me some questions, and he was satisfied with the answers, I reckon, because he told the board that he would recommend me for the job. So I took the job, but I have had people like him, and his son Rich is still a doctor there, and he takes care of my family now. Even though he's a surgeon, he still take care of me and my family, and he's got a little brother up at Ed Fields up at Oxford, but it's just been a lot of good families. But those and the 2 board members that hired me, probably stand out to me more than anybody else. But the community itself it needs some help. It needs some help. It's just everybody moves out of there. There's nothing to do. You're gone, but I was mad. I'd coached a boy back in '98, and he played on the state championship team in '98, and he lived in Zachary, and his name was Josh Wilson, and he had a lot of connections there. He'd coached a lot of them when they was playing Pee Wee football down there in Zachary. I was able to get 4 or 5 kids from down there through the years because he recommended me. He brought his kid back up there after he graduated. He was living in Zachary itself, and Zachary's got a heck of a football program of their own. But I was able to crack in there and get a few of those kids out of there, and just good kids, smart kids, isn't it?
Well, that's what every school wants. They want good families and good kids in their school, and your name and your reputation obviously help to get some folks who are interested in having good football players to bring their families to your school. So
Over a period of time, I'm sure that definitely had an effect. I got some kids right now that I got from other schools, and they got about 4 of them that's playing this year, and that's another reason I want to go back and work with them. They asked me to in the state championship ball game. They start asking me, "You coming back? You coming back?" I told them I can't tell you right now. Let's just get through this one here, And but I've got a lot of great memories and a lot of great friends. Got some enemies too. You make some, I can promise you. Some of your players, Coach Bradshaw said that's some of the worst things in the world. He was so disappointed in some of his players, how they turned on him, through the years. And he'd been so good to them, But I reckon you crossed paths with a lot of people.
Well, look, you've mentioned Coach Joe Bradshaw for several times. Let's talk a little bit about some other guys that maybe were mentors to you or that you just had a lot of respect for coaching against. I know you mentioned Ricky Black a little bit earlier, and you talked about the respect you have for Coach Black when he was at Prep. And let's just talk about a little bit about either some mentors or some guys you coached against that you really enjoy talking about.
Well, Coach Black is an outstanding man, and he proved it what he could do on the football field coaching, and he's been an inspiration to me. He's told me to stay with it, to keep doing it as long as you want to do it. So I've stayed with it. But I've had a lot of good friends, but most of them have passed on. Bobby Marks at ACCS and Keith Walters. Those Charlie Newland, Vesta Newcomb. Those guys were they were really football coaches now. They did a lot for me, and I was playing at Manchester one night in a playoff game, and Coach Newcomb was up there, and he come and talked to me about jump to a 4-3. So I went to a 4-3 at halftime, and I had a little quick coaching session there, and but that was his defense, and that ended up being mine too. I got to where I run a 5-3 early on, but those guys meant a lot to me, and they were very kind to help me with a lot of situations and one fellow I want to say too that he's not into coaching, but Dr. Peter Jernberg. I'd call him all the time to get advice, how to handle this, or how to make sure I had everything up to par. And I've had some great workers there at the school. But I can't say enough good things about Peter Jernberg. He's a great guy. I hadn't talked to him in a while, but.
Well, Mr. Jernberg, he's a guest coming up soon on this show, so we'll make sure we ask him about you. And there's some other names you just mentioned that are Charlie Newland's definitely on our list, and there's several of those guys. We're excited about this podcast and wanting to have a great history, just wanting to have people tell great stories about our association and things that have happened, and this is certainly something you're doing well.
So winningest coach in the state of Mississippi. And that carries just tremendous value for Centerville Academy, also our association. And I know that it's going to be hard to identify specific games, but are there games that stand out to you as those that were wins that were just meant just a little bit more than others because of circumstances, those that you remember the most, or were there games that stand out to you that just you can't quite get over? When I was coaching, Coach Hurst, thankfully I never had the pleasure of coaching against you because I don't feel like I'd have done very well. But I will say this, the wins didn't mean as much towards the end, and the losses hurt a lot more. I guess is a good way to say it. I mean, you losing just really ate at you. What are some of the games that you can remember that just stand out to you over your history that either meant so much to you or you just still today can't quite get over?
I reckon my first state championship against Coach Bradshaw. I didn't know Coach Bradshaw from Adam, and we played on a rainy, soaked field. It was pouring down rain. It rained the day before, and this day and age, if I would call it off for 2 weeks, because people are so soft, they wouldn't want to get out there, But we went out there on the field, and we had them 8-0 halftime, and one of the stories Coach Bradshaw told would always tell. He said, "I told y'all about Jimmy Simpson hitting at running back. It was all-state running back, and put him out of the game on the opening kickoff." And Coach Bradshaw said he eat more catfish than he's ever seen anybody eat. And when he got on up the road, there wasn't nothing wrong with him. But I had a boy named Robert Lee that played for me. He went to LSU and started 7 games as a true freshman. And Coach Bradshaw said he thought he had us. We started to get tired. Of course, we didn't have many kids. He had a pretty good group of kids at that time. But he said, because both of us had to go back up to that dressing room which you was talking about, and we had one here and he had one there, and he said there was a Chiquita bread bananas truck had backed up to the door, at the back door where he went in, and he said he found out later that they brought a stalk of bananas up there for that Sasquatch that I had. That was Robert Lee. He called him a Sasquatch. He said he like fed him a stalk of bananas, and he come back out. He said he tore us up. But anyway, that ball, I was so nervous at the ball game, just starting out. My quarterback broke his hand in the South State against Heidelberg. And he broke that bone. Every time he'd move his finger, the bone would pop up. Dr. Dick told me, he said, "Don't worry about it. I'll take care of that. You just get them ready to play." He said, "I'll have him ready to play." And so he was at a cast. We had him ready. And Timmy Mackey went out there, and he didn't drop a snap all night in the pouring rain with a broke hand. He said that hand hurt him that night worse than he'd ever had anything happen to him before. How much it hurt after that game. But he said, if I had to do it over again, Coach Hurst, I'd do it again. So,
and that was
that ball game steps out.
And that was a state championship game that you hosted on your campus.
Yes, sir.
This was before they went to neutral sites for state championship games.
Yes, sir.
Coach, it's a long way from Charleston, Mississippi, where Strider Academy was to Centerville.
It is. And don't you think it ain't a long ways from Centerville Academy to travel to Magnolia Heights to play? They got 45 kids dressed up. We got 16. But that was a long trip. And it's nicer to have it. It's nice when it's at your place, but when you have to travel, it's nice to have those ball games at a central location and to play.
Well, tell us a little bit about that Magnolia Heights game.
Well, we had them 6-0 halftime, and we'd missed the extra point. We'd missed a field goal, and I had 2 boys that when the game was over. When the game was at halftime, we went out there and I told them boys to come back in a room. I took 2 of them in a room and talked to them, Gary Crum and James Earl Reynolds. And I wouldn't let no. I told the rest of them, stay out here. Y'all don't need to hear what I'm going to tell those kids. But they boys laugh about it to this day. They loved it. But I had the walls rattling. They come back, they played hard. And James Earl wasn't the fastest kid in the world. But Magnolia Heights, this honest to God truth, they didn't have a first down to the 4th quarter. I mean, we snuffed them. I told my coaches, we went up there and watched them play Stride of the Week the Saturday night because it rained. They wouldn't play. We played Heidelberg in a storm. But and I went in and talked to Coach Bradshaw after the game there and got a scouting report on them. And coming down the road, I was laying on the back seat, sleep. I had another 2 coaches. I woke up, I raised up and told them, I said, we're going to beat them boys. They both looked at us and said, Coach Hurst, you must be crazy. We can't beat them. they loaded. I said, yeah, I'm gonna stop them. So we stopped them on defense, and we played hard enough. I had a nephew on that football team, with Jeffrey Duvall, and he was a running back and a linebacker. And he made they broke that run and went about 50 yards, and James Earl run him down. I was gonna kill him, and he caught him on about the 9-yard line, and Jeffrey made both tackles, and then he got the fumble we had him to fumble on third down, and we got the ball and run the clock out, ended up punting again, but that was a big game for us, really, for a little school like us, and it was daylight the next morning when we got pulled into school. And I remember getting up going deer hunting that same morning, It wasn't no sleeping, just.
All right, so Coach Hurst, when I was visiting with you on the phone in preparation for this, I think you had a nephew around the house, and your nephew told me to ask you about a particular game where you ran 99 yards worth of quarterback sweep to the left.
That was Jeffrey Duvall.
Okay,
we was playing a game, and I think we ended up winning 7-0, but we got the ball back on the 1-yard line, and we were running the slot at that time, but he was my tailback on the state championship team in '79, but that was in '80, and he ran the quarterback sweep 13 times in a row to the left side, and the reason we kept running to the left side so I could see who wasn't blocking, who was blocking. But we scored, we beat them. But that was a good ball. That was a district game at that time.
Who was that against?
Pine Hills Academy, Gloucester.
Hills. Oh yes, sir.
They had some athletes. Golly, some of them kids sent their kids to Centerville in later years after their school got to where it wasn't working. But
13 times in a row you ran the quarterback sweep to the left.
Yes, sir.
Now, obviously, it was to your sideline so you could check out the blocking better.
Yes, sir.
You didn't want to run way over there on the other side of the field.
I wanted to be able to see so I know who to get on to.
who you could take into the locker room and into the small room later on.
That's right. And scold them a little bit. But
well, I'm gonna go back to my previous question, not to get into any bad memories, but are there any games that you just wish you could have back? Wish you could go back and coach again?
Got several of them most probably, but we played Greenville St. Joe in a state championship in I believe it was in 19. I believe we played, and we had practiced in a play that they did, and it was a lateral, and the officials that was there had called. Lee Wilson was one of them. I know y'all know Lee, but anyway, he called it the week before, and he called it a lateral. And it was a lateral, and they threw the ball out there, and in that ball game in particular, but the officials, they didn't mainly do anything wrong, but they had 2 kids that went on to play pro football on that team, running backs.
No, that was a very good football team with two boys that played high level D1 football, running backs for Oregon and for Mississippi State.
Yes,
yes, sir.
Yes, and they were good kids too. But I just wish we could have played that. I had too many kids that was hurt.
Yes.
Middle linebacker, he got hurt the week before against Silver Bay. Messi showed up. He tried to play. He played a series and had to come out. Couldn't play. I had a nephew on the team. Didn't know it at that time. He had a cracked ankle. He was playing on that cracked ankle, but he played the whole time on it. But we just got beaten up pretty bad. We don't have many numbers, but it was a great ball game. And that gentleman that called that ball game retired, and I saw him at the All-Star game the next week, and he come up and told me how much he enjoyed it. I told him I appreciated what he had done and what this association's done for me. We're very blessed to have it.
No doubt. What about you mentioned Peter Jernberg, who wasn't a football coach. You're talking a little bit about some officials. Anybody else from just around our association that you really value, having been able to get to know some folks, not necessarily football related. You go to track meets, you get to talk to people at track meets, just some of those folks you look forward to seeing at track meets in the spring, maybe.
Tommy Gunn, I always liked talking to Tommy Gunn. He was a pleasure to talk to. And
Sure.
I can remember when we used to go to the administrators' meetings, and he'd get in the pool with the little kids and play with them. He'd take my little boy, just throw him for pies. He'd throw him in that water. But just so many great people that I could name through the years that have helped to influence me into what I have done. But the administrative part, I had some great teachers at Centerville. They come out of the public school. But those guys, those ladies, they were just super. They did a good job. And of course, today and age, it's hard to get teachers into our little areas. Nothing down there. The big schools in the big towns, they're still getting great teachers, but they're hard to find. Nobody moves in there, but that's something that I think that's really it's caused a lot of trouble in a small area. All up and down the Delta, they've always had they've had the same problem. So it's just something you have to learn to deal with. Make the best of it. Don Sider was a big influence in my life. I thought the world of him. I've served on AEC, I don't know, maybe 20 years or better, but he was a big influence in
Tommy Gunn was at Canton Academy when I was in elementary, I think, maybe even when I was in kindergarten. But he was there, and when I got into the profession and showing up at team camps, he would be bringing girls and boys basketball teams to team camps at MRA, and we made that connection that I'd grown up in Canton. And I felt like he treated me like I was his own son as soon as he was going to do it anyway, but especially once we found that Canton connection. And Tommy Gunn had connections everywhere, but he was so kind. You're right. He was kind to the kids from other teams. He was kind to the coaches. He was just a kind person. He was a great man.
He sure was. And that's what's helped our association to get such a good start, I think, is by all those people that were so dedicated and worked so hard to pull things together to make it happen. It's more out there. I just kind of draw a blank from time to time. But
well, Coach, I've got a good Tommy Gunn story for you. He's the only person that ever hired me that I never worked for. And the reason I say that is because I was at Marshall Academy in 2011 as head football coach and teaching, and Tommy was the head of school at Heritage. Well, he hired me to come be his athletic director and head football coach at Heritage Academy. And so about 2 weeks after he hired me, of course, this would have been somewhere around March, 2 weeks after he hired me, he called me and told me he was coming back to Marshall to be the head of school. And so we flipped. I said, well, I guess you were trying to fire me at Marshall to get me to come to Heritage. I could have stayed at Marshall with you. And so anyway, and so I ended up transitioning to Heritage before the end of the school year because the athletic director was leaving and Tommy was leaving and the head football coach was leaving. So they didn't really have a lot of people on campus. And so the first day I went to Heritage, I didn't know anybody. And I went into Tommy's office at 7:30 that morning, and he said, look, I've got to go to a meeting today. He said, the athletic director's gone. He said, my high school principal's gone. He said, you've got it today. I said, Tommy, I don't know anybody. He said, don't worry, everything will be fine. And he left me on campus for the day to run the whole school. Didn't even know a teacher. That was Tommy Gunn for you. But I love Mr. Gunn. He was great to me, and he was a mentor to me when I was coming up through the association.
He's been there to a lot of people. That's a good story, though.
Yeah, it is.
Well, talking about Tommy Gunn and mentioning a job change is definitely something you should talk about, because he had lots of experience at lots of different schools.
He did. He had a lot of different schools. He went from school to school for a while. I couldn't keep up where he was, but he had a great influence at every school he went to, though. He did, and he had a great influence on me, and I appreciate him. And shame he died so young.
No doubt, he's definitely one we'd love to have had on this podcast.
Absolutely,
but, we're glad to get folks like you, and we have a lot of other good folks coming up soon. So we're looking forward to being able to spread these podcasts around our association and let some of our younger fans learn a little bit about the good old days of our association.
That was the best days, but I hope there's better days ahead of us too.
We do too.
I wish for the best.
No doubt. That's certainly the plan, is to have great days ahead of us as well.
Yes, sir.
But you gotta know the history to make it better in the future too.
That's right. That's right.
Well, Coach Hurst, thanks so much for joining us. Do you have any closing thing? You have anything you want to any one last story you want to mention before we get out of here?
No, but I was just glad to see it that last ball game there against Lee. I was glad to when I looked out there and saw them cramping in the second quarter. I told him, Coach, just hold, don't change nothing. Just keep doing what you're doing right now. We're gonna make a little change in the third quarter. And but they had a fine football team. That running back they got is special. He's a very special kid, you know. And but that was exciting. That was because I reckon because I had so many kids on that team that had came there with me or for me or whatever, and we all those kids that played a Pee Wee football game. A lot of them played Pee Wee down at Zachary, but not all of them. But some of them come from different areas. But and I had my grandson on that team was a very, very special, and come from behind and win it. And it was a big crowd of people there. There was a lot of folks there.
It was one of the most highly attended games that we had this year. State
Really?
Championship. Yes, sir. It was. It was a great crowd, and it was a great environment. It was good football.
Y'all do a great job, and I appreciate y'all.
Well, thank you.
Thank you,
really
sir.
do, and I'm glad to have you leading the association. I mean that at the bottom of my heart.
Well, thanks, Coach. And you know, you mentioned that about the past and how and all the people and the association and how it came up, and so many people gave so much time and effort to bring it up. We don't take that for granted with our staff and with the people that are now working inside the association. We understand all the hard work people have put into making this what it is, and we hope to continue that legacy and legacies like yours that you've been so valuable to the association. So we'll work hard to continue to do that
and to keep God at first. If we keep God first, we're gonna all be all right.
Yes, sir.
No doubt. Look, one thing I wanted to mention before we get out of here is just how incredible it is that you spent your entire career at Centerville Academy. Not only did your children graduate from Centerville Academy, but your 5 grandchildren are all going to graduate from Centerville Academy, and that's just that's amazing. I feel like I was fortunate enough to be at one school for a long time, and both of my children were able to graduate from MRA. But knowing that all 5 of your grandchildren are going to graduate from Centerville, also that's an incredible legacy that you're leaving with Centerville Academy. And I know Centerville Academy is glad to have had you, and it sounds like you're glad to have found Centerville Academy.
Absolutely, it's a two-way street,
no doubt.
But just I got chill bumps. It's just so many people that I could say things about, but. I just want to thank the Lord for giving me the opportunity, because He's blessed me. Heart, had to have open heart surgery and all that kind of stuff. But
well, the only thing I'm disappointed in, Coach, is the fact that you say that your boys don't push a sled for an hour a day anymore. Because when I was coaching and my boys would complain about pushing a sled for 10 minutes, we'd always sit out there and tell them, all my coaches, guys, Centerville Academy is down there doing it for an hour right now. I don't know what y'all are complaining about.
and they were. Boy, it was gruesome. Golly.
Well, it was all across the association. Everybody knew that you were doing it, and we couldn't get our kids to replicate it. I guess that's why you won so many football games, Coach.
446 regular season wins, or 446 career wins, and 10 state championships.
Yes, sir. Lost 6.
Wow. Those are the ones you remember more than the 10 you won,
yes,
probably.
Absolutely.
Well, look, thanks so much for pouring your career into our association, And we certainly hope we can continue to carry on great things in our association like you've done for all these years. Good luck to you as a defensive coordinator next year.
Yes, sir.
And good luck to Centerville Academy as we go. This has been episode 4 of the MAIS Legends and Leaders podcast. And Barrett, Donahoe, and I are excited to bring these podcasts to you. And we want to say a special thanks to Coach Bill Hurst for being here today. And we look forward to more of these podcasts as we go. Thanks so much for watching.